Hello and welcome to Castival. This is the podcast which brings on brilliant guests to pitch their dream music festival. My name's Matt Hoss and I'm the host, and I'm here to guide you around their festival. Today's guest is Edinburgh Fringe veteran, stand-up comedian, and yoga instructor. It's Abigoliah Schamaun. Hello!
Hello! Good to see you, Matt, or hear you, as it were. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you too. And how are you doing today?
I'm good. I've been very productive today. I woke up. I went for a run.
Wow.
Tom and I, my boyfriend and I, are doing the Latitude Festival this weekend.
Yes.
And since we haven't traveled much, I'm packing now because I'm like not used to it, let alone camping packing. So it's like we just blew up the air mattress to make sure that it doesn't have any holes in it.
Yeah. Oh, you must be so excited to go to Latitude.
I am. I'm. It's always one of my favorite festivals to do. I'm back hosting the Comedy Arena, and it's just a fun time. It'll be really interesting to see what it's like this year.
Absolutely.
Given, all of the rules and stuff. Yeah, I'm curious to see what it's like, but I think it'll be pretty fun still.
You are absolutely perfect for this podcast because you are a festival veteran. You've got a lot of that experience. So I think you're going to be an absolute treat to talk to today as well. And it's very difficult doing comedy at a festival sometimes because there's a lot of different there's a lot of moving parts with it as well, and there's a lot of people kind of in different places as well. How do you cope being the compere on and doing a long shift like that?
So my shift will last from 11 a.m. I just read it today. I was like, I got the longest compare shift. I got to stop saying I'll perform any day. I will be performing from 11 o'clock to, I think the last one is at 5:30.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing I love doing it. I'm going to say that before I tell you what it's like. I'm going to tell you I love doing it. And I love Latitude, and thank you, Festival Republic, for giving me this opportunity. But hosting a comedy festival, a comedy tent like Latitude, if you are hosting it, you have to understand that no one cares that you're there, and it is not about you. And you will never get the laugh you want. Therefore, don't even try. Because what happens, and it's like, your job is to kind of shoof everyone forward. Mm-hmm. So the comedy at Latitude happens in the day. So some people just wander in the tent, have no clue what's going on. Some people are diehard fans of the comedians. So, for instance, the two performers who are happening on Latitude are Simon Amstel and Catherine Ryan. For the sake of this exercise, let's say they're performing back to back. Simon has a different audience than Catherine. Mm-hmm. So what happens is Simon will go on stage, and my job was to get everyone in the room and make sure they're all sitting down to get ready for Simon. And they don't care that I'm there. They're all like waving to their friends to bring their friends over to sit with them in the tent. They're talking while I'm on stage. There's about 5 people in the front who are listening to me. No one else cares. And then Simon finishes. And then I walk on stage to a tent of thousands of people who then stand up, turn their backs on me, and walk out of the tent. And that is the first 3 to 4 minutes of me on stage between acts, is looking at the back of everyone while all of Simon's group, all of his fan base leave the tent. And then Catherine Ryan's fan base will enter the tent. So then I am back to talking while people are waving at their friends, calling them on the cell phone to be like, we're by the second tent pole or whatever. So your job as a compere at a festival like Latitude is it's actually not to be funny at all. It's to be chipper and happy and welcoming and just kind of keep the ball up in the air between acts. Mm-hmm. And anytime I've done a joke that I really love and care about on stage, it dies. But if we have a fancy headdress competition among those in the audience, oh my gosh, we're winning.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to buy a t-shirt cannon for this.
Yes, oh my god. Right, listener, we're going to crowdfund that t-shirt cannon for Abigoliah. It's going to be epic for Latitude. So, send the donations in quickly, and we'll get Abigoliah that. It'll be, the fiercest compare around, like, any knobheads, bam, gone, you know? That was a lovely insight there as well. And have you, outside of work, have you been to many festivals? Do you enjoy going to music festivals?
So I've only been to music festivals I've been invited to perform at as a comedian, with the exception of X-Fest in Dayton, Ohio, when I was in high school. And X-Fest was kind of like, do you know what Warped Tour is?
Yes. It's like a punk tour, right?
So it's Warped Tour vibes, but it's all in one day. And it travels around a little bit more. So it was one day. The year I went, Puddle of Mud was the headliner.
And how did you feel about Puddle of Mud?
I liked them at the time. I mean, I liked the one song. She fucking hates me. And everyone was just waiting for that song to happen.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, it was one of those tents where there was like crowd surfing and mosh pitting and stuff. And it was the summer before I went to university, and I went to university for musical theater. And my mom, before I went to the festival, was like, no mosh pitting, no crowd surfing, because if you break something, you will not be able to go to school, because part of my schooling is to like take dance classes, and they will like not let you in your first semester if you have like a broken leg, which is ableist looking back at it. But yeah, and of course I ignored all my mother's suggestions, and I came back like with just my shirt all stretched out and just like covered in dirt because I was like mosh pitting and crowd surfing. I did not hurt myself. My friend Sarah, who I went with, in the very first mosh pit she got into, she fractured her elbow.
Oh my god. And mosh pit injuries don't really happen as often as people who don't go in them feel. It does happen, like, and I feel I've definitely been to gigs where people have maybe, like, I was at a Metallica concert where someone dislocated their shoulder and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like mosh pits are there to have fun, and people often look out for each other. People, you know what I mean?
I mean, I've had it where I've fallen in a mosh pit, and as soon as you fall, someone just grabs you and picks you up to keep you safe. I once crowd surfed, nearly got dropped in a mosh pit, which was quite exciting because literally everyone saw what was happening, and they caught me like I was upside down, like head upside down, going into the mosh pit, and like whoever was holding me lifted me back up and worked me around the mosh pit so it didn't happen. People do look out for you, but I mean, if the game is bang into each other, like stuff's gonna happen. Like,
that a genuinely elegant interpretation of mosh pits, just banging into each other. It's very, very, like, sounds sophisticated like that. Yeah. But yeah, I remember going to see a Slayer concert because when I was a younger teenager, I used to go to a lot of metal festivals like Sonosphere, and the most scared I've ever been to see a mosh pit, because my mum, again, like my mum warned me not to get into any mosh pits and stuff like that because I was going by myself, which is quite a ballsy move for a teenager, like going across the country. And as soon as the pits opened up for Slayer, it was so kind of like it was every man for himself, you know what I mean? So it was just like, oh my goodness, I was so like scared and kind of and I was like, oh my god, my mum was right, stay away from the Slayer mosh pits. And I think I was a more cowardly approach than you, perhaps.
Well, maybe, but then again, you also didn't have friends with you who, if you broke something, you could be like, how crazy is this that I broke my elbow? She didn't get it checked out until like the Monday morning after, as you do when you're a kid. And then she was like, turns out I fractured it.
Oh bless.
But actually, the first music festival I had ever been to here in the UK that I got booked on their comedy tent or whatever they called it that year was Tea in the Park.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's known as being a rough and rowdy festival. And I was, and everyone was like, first of all, it did not rain the entire time I was there, which I also heard that it gets really, really muddy. People were like, if it gets as muddy as it did last year, you'll hate it and have a miserable time. But it didn't get muddy. But before I went, all the Scottish people who were like, got me on this festival were like, oh, it can be rough. Oh, there's going to be some characters there. Oh, it's going to be rough. And I was walking around with another comic, and I was like, everyone says that this festival is really rough and fights break out all the time. I wonder if I'm going to see one. And he's like, I don't know. And this is like broad daylight, beautiful sunshine, just like walking through a field, having a lovely time. I literally said it, and we heard a scream, and then saw like one woman drag another woman across the field by her hair and hit her. And then, of course, a circle formed to watch, but no one actually did anything to stop them.
And it's like, I really like Simon Amstel. You like Catherine Ryan. Take that.
Exactly.
It's like prophetic fallacy right there. And before we move into looking at your festival, like the way I typically start is asking if someone were to ask you what kind of music are you into, how do you typically respond?
Okay, here's where, like, your podcast actually gave me a little anxiety because according to everyone I've ever met, I have horrible taste in music. I think Jimmy Buffett's Cheeseburgers in Paradise is one of the most prophetic songs I've ever heard. I've never heard a song. This is not in. Don't turn off the podcast yet, guys. Don't worry, it's not in my festival. But I am one of those people who doesn't listen to a lot of full albums, but I will listen to one song on loop for about a week.
Yes.
And there, after talking about going to these violent festivals, the one thing that I do listen to the full albums are, oh, you guessed it, it was my major, musicals. So yeah. I didn't make a musical festival. I have created a musical festival.
Whoa.
So the idea of this festival is that you don't watch the whole musical, but that they do an abridged reading. And if you've never seen that before, what they'll do is they sing all the songs. And if there's something integral to the plot, they'll just tell you. They'll just be like, and this is the part where, Hamilton finds out that all these guys know that he was cheating on his wife. Okay, now we go into the Hamilton papers, something like that.
Wow. Okay, that's a strong idea from the get-go. And before you go, kind of look more closely to that, I really just want to find out a little bit more about your quote, bad taste. Who says you got bad taste?
My boyfriend.
Oh, no.
My boyfriend says I have bad taste. I remember one time going to, doing a comedy festival. I was doing the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And this is back when you had iPods. Children, there was a time when your music wasn't on your phone, but it was on another digital device. And, you'd give your iPod to your sound guy to play your house music. And we were just sitting there before the show talking, and he had my iPod, and he was just like, knowing everything I know about you, I thought you'd have really cool taste in music, but looking at this, oh my God.
That's devastating. Oh my God.
Yeah. It just creeps up every now and then. And another example, because I do really love musicals. I am one of those kids who was locked in their room acting out Cats. Don't worry, not in the festival. We did not put Cats in the festival. And when I was in college, I dated a guy who was really into metal and rock. And my mother showed up to New York City to visit me with a Rolling Stones magazine, the best albums of all time, 100 best albums of all time. And she gave it to me and was like, here, I thought you could read this and you'd know some more about music. And then you and your boyfriend would have something to talk about. So even my mother is like, this girl is an idiot.
Oh, bless you. You know what? I think that you may be put on a musical festival, but that's great. That's a good sense of music. I'm gonna try and convince you, or at least help support that view by the end of the podcast episode. I want you to kind of feel full of yes, I do have good taste in music, and I want you to wear it as a badge for the rest of your life. That's what we're doing today.
Thank you. Well, I am excited to go through this journey with you.
Well, I think it's time to start that journey and start off with the admin of your festival. Hello and welcome to Season 4 of Castival. What a delight it is to have you back here. If you'd like to help support the podcast, because this is an ad-free podcast, there's many ways you can do that. You can follow me at Matt House Comedy on the social medias like Instagram and Twitter, and watch me do live performances on Twitch. I'm still doing Twitch throughout the summers and from 2021 onwards, so please do follow me there. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Matt House Comedy. If you'd like to, you can also read my book, available from my website, www.matthousecomedy.com. It's called Purify. On top of that, make sure to join the Patreon, where there's extra bonus content every single week. If you like my streams, there's some stuff there. And if you wanted to help the podcast specifically, make sure to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcast provider that you use. And do share with friends. Other than that, enjoy this very special episode of Castival. I wanna see that band you hate. I already told you we were too late. Now let's go back to the tent. Can't really, cause it's burning in the field. What do you think the name of your festival is going to be?
The Musical Festival Extravaganza.
Now, that is so appropriate as well. We know what it is, and extravaganza, it hasn't been used on this podcast before, but it is so suitable for its debut right now. It's going to be good. Whereabouts geographically would you like your festival to be?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that other than a field. I think if we were going to have it in the UK, I think musicals attract a certain type of people, and I think those people might live in Devon. So,
and why do you think they live in Devon? Is that a speculative guess, or is it a good kind of you know about it?
It's a speculative guess. I know Laura Lex is from Devon, and she likes musicals. I know white rich people can afford musicals, and white rich people, I think, live in Devon. It's a very posh area, as far as I know. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? I see the logic there, and that seems right. You know, that there seems to be. You haven't stepped one place wrong. That's set in Devon. Lovely stuff. With that in mind, Abigoliah, without revealing the lineup, how much are you looking to charge per ticket?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, these are the big ones. These are the greats that we have coming back, some out of retirement, some out of death to do this festival. So it would be an astronomical thing. It'd be £500 a ticket. I don't know how much a festival costs because I haven't actually paid for one. But
Yeah.
But I think what we would do is we would offer glamping. We would be one of those festivals that offers glamping for people who want it.
And talking about that, so there is camping at the festival, but are you a fan of camping?
Yeah, I like it. So I grew up not like camping, like festival camping. I grew up backpacking, where you throw everything on your back and walk into the woods for 5 days and then walk out. So to me, festival camping is fancy. You get to take a pillow and like the first time I went, like my friend, I went with Sarah Bonetto, as I'm sure you know Sarah, and she's like,
Legend.
oh, and before you go to Latitude, you always stop off at this Sainsbury's to pick up snacks and stuff. And it had never occurred to me that you could like bring your own cooler full of drinks and that you could like get snacks for evening and like, yeah, and have your own little stash at your thing. The one, issue with festival camping that I think everyone would say about festival camping is you have to put your tent so close together that if you're next to the party tent, you're fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. I get quite claustrophobic. I'm quite usually better these days, but yeah, I do. When I was a teenager, I used to really like hate being so close to other people, but it's kind of inevitable. In fact, my first ever festival, I went with my brother, and to avoid other people, we went into like this ravine in the middle of Leeds Festival, and we were sleeping on like a 45-degree angle, and we just ended up in the corner of it as well. But
Yeah,
it's
that's always the worst when you get put on a hill or, and you wind up just sliding down or getting a head rush because you sleep in the wrong direction because you were drunk.
At your festival, what kind of role are you thinking about taking? Are you quite someone who likes to be kind of an admin, kind of like you control the festival? Are you going to be out partying? Are you going to be having a nice time? Are you going to be meet and greeting with the stars? What is your role?
First of all, I definitely want to meet and greet with these stars because I've picked casts and musicals that my heroes have emerged from. Mm-hmm. So I definitely want to meet them. I do like the idea of doing the producing part because I like power. However, I am horribly disorganized, and I can't help but party. So I would do as much work as I could up until the festival. And then once the festival starts, I want to be in the green room with all of these amazing musicians and singers. And I want to be drinking champagne and doing cocaine and just rocking out to Rodgers and Hammerstein.
I'm not quite sure what it is, Abigoliah, but you really do paint a wonderful picture as well. You say things with such grace. I love it a lot.
Oh, thank you. I'm literally making this up as I go along. Because it's not going to happen. I can say whatever.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the music side of your festival, what kind of food and drink would you specifically like at your festival?
So I knew you were going to ask this when you started asking non-musical questions, and I thought about it in the last 15 minutes, and I have a great idea. So because this is the Musical Extravaganza Festival, we are going to serve New York food.
Nice.
So, and famous New York food. So there is going to be Murray's Bagels. I don't know if you have a big New York listenership, but Murray's Bagels is a very famous bagel shop in New York. They will be there. They have every kind of bagel, every kind of schmear. Mm-hmm. They're so good. We are going to have the restaurant Sardi's, which is a famous Broadway restaurant that it isn't considered incredibly touristy, but it is one of those things that I genuinely recommend people do. They will serve the Sardi's. The whole restaurant they've got a bar upstairs that you can like casual dine, and they have a restaurant downstairs where you can get like fancy stuff like a filet mignon and stuff. Ooh. But obviously it's going to be a food cart, so they will serve Manhattans, which is a bourbon drink. They will serve dirty martinis, which is a martini with a lot of olive brine in it, which is one of my favorite drinks. Oh, really? They will serve the filet mignon because you gotta, and crab cakes, and they do a good burger there. So we'll do that. And also we will have the hot dog trucks that are famous in New York that serve watery, awful hot dogs and cold knishes for some reason. They all sell knishes. So that will be it. So Murray's Bagels, Sardi's, and the hot dog trucks.
That is such a great selection there. Like, I feel that it feels very authentic. It feels very New York. It feels like that special moment before you go and see a show where you're just eating food with friends. Sometimes it's convenient. Sometimes you go specifically to a place. But that feeling, it's really
and
nice.
We'll have to also do pizza by the slice. We'll do pizza by the slice from Ray's Pizza, which is not it's the one that's all over the place that you think is the original, but you never know which is the original Ray's.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And I actually sound quite hungry after that. But let's go and sate our appetite by going to see who is playing on your main stage. Festival, are you ready? Here we go! Get on your feet! If you know this one, sing along.
Okay, So I've broken up our stages into off-Broadway, Broadway, and movie musicals.
Whoa, that's so cool. So, yeah, that's awesome.
I would call the main stage movie musicals because that's what your audience is going to know more about if they know about any of these. Mm-hmm. On my movie musical stage, I have 4. Mm-hmm. I have Cinderella from 1997, premiered on ABC, written by Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Wow. Yeah, so tell me more about Cinderella. That's awesome.
Okay, so Cinderella was written by Rodgers and Hammerstein, and they also wrote, they're like, if you've heard of like an old standard, it's either by Rodgers and Hammerstein or Cole Porter. They also famously wrote The Sound of Music, if you've heard of that. And this 1909 and this movie was originally a movie that was released in, I believe, 1957. It's the only musical that Rodgers and Hammerstein ever wrote specifically for TV. So this was never supposed to be a staged musical. Mm-hmm. And in 1997, ABC did a production of it, and it was absolutely amazing. Brandy played Cinderella, because remember, it's 1997.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston played the fairy godmother.
Oh my God, that's a perfect casting, right?
Whoopi Goldberg played the queen. Jason Alexander played Lionel. And Jason Alexander is George Costanza from Seinfeld.
Yes,
and what people don't know about Jason Alexander is before he got the iconic role of George Costanza, he had an amazing theater career under his belt. Mm-hmm. He did a lot of Broadway. I think he's won a Tony, which is the big Broadway thing.
Yes.
He's in it, and Bernadette Peters played the wicked stepmother. I don't know if you'll know who she is.
I don't from the top of my head.
Okay, so she's a big Broadway baby. That is the cast of it. The cast will come back. Rodgers and Hammerstein will be there as well.
Nice.
And the reason why I picked this one is because it is a couple of these are like old musicals. Mm-hmm. This one specifically that's been re-envisioned in modern times, or as the 90s saw it, as modern times.
Yeah.
And the music in it bops. It's not like, I mean, it doesn't have a beat to it like Hamilton, but there's just lovely little songs in it. There's a song called The Stepsisters Laments, where the two stepsisters are watching Brandy or Cinderella dance with the prince, and they're so mad about it. They start singing this song that's like, why would a fellow want a girl like her, a girl who's merely lovely? And in the middle of the song, they like threaten to break her arm.
Whoa.
And like...
By putting her in the mosh pit, is that why?
Yeah, by putting her in the mosh pit. And it's also a great song sung by the fairy godmother, who is, let us remember, Whitney Houston in this production, is impossible. So it's like, impossible for a strange country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage. Impossible. Things are happening every day. And I'm not the singer I once was, so please excuse me.
No,
I will do this. No one is listening to this all the way through. This is the most nerdy thing I've ever done.
Yeah, no,
it's such a sweet musical, and it's so hopeful. And it is a bit twee, but it's also like when you see these people play these roles, it makes it all make sense somehow. Like it's just a beautiful little musical. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love it.
So I was trying to pick my brains and kind of think of if I knew it, and I don't think I I don't. Well, obviously, I knew the Cinderella story, and but I'm not this specific production. But like, what do you think the number one song people would kind of connect to is? What?
So the song that I connected to the most, and by the way, this is, I'm pretty sure, available to stream on Disney Plus. Some of these you can watch. If anyone is a musical theater buff who's listening to this and wants to watch these, some of these you can find. But there's a song that Cinderella sings called In My Own Little Corner, which now my favorite song is Stepsisters Lament, because like I said, it's a bop.
Yeah.
But In My Own Little Corner is this like really sweet song where she's singing how like her wicked stepmother is like, go to your corner. And, you know, she sits by the cinders among the ashes or whatever. And she sings this song of, in my own little corner, in my own little room, I can be whatever I want to be. Aww. And then she play acts like being like a prince. And then she's like, you know, she's a huntress. She does all these things. And like plays out this like grand idea. But she only feels safe in her own little corner doing these things. And again, as a girl who sat in her bedroom by herself acting out musicals, like this is exactly what I did as a child.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just in my own little corner, pretending to be Brandy, which is a cancelable offense by these days. But you know, at that time, in my own little corner, I can be whoever I want to be.
I can see that, and that sounds really touching, and that's going to connect to the audience too, and I think that's going to be sweet. I don't usually ask this, but in terms of like the staging of this, is it like a kind of a usual festival setup, like the big speakers on the main stage and then just performing it on the main stage, or is it done like in a theater as well, like but in like the middle? Like, what's the kind of vibe?
So it's going to be like outside orchestration. So they do this. There's a playhouse in New York called the Roundhouse that famously revives plays but doesn't stage them completely. So there will be like an orchestra pit with a whole orchestra of which the composers will be directing. So Rodgers and Hammerstein together. It'll be so cute. On the stage will be the actors, and they'll be like basically standing in a line and walk out and sing like the main song. And then someone, like I said, instead of watching the whole musical, someone will be like, after the prince had gone through the kingdom, he settled on a little house, and in that little house was a young and fair woman. And then we cut to like Brandy singing her song.
Yeah.
So they will be in suggestions of the costume, but they won't be in full costume.
Cool.
They will be, the actors will be on stage the whole time, and if they are not singing, they will be sitting in chairs in the back. It's like a play reading.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have pyrotechnics because it's a musical. It's a theater. It's a music festival.
Yeah.
So for some reason, there will be like sparks flying from the stage in every single one of these.
Yeah, my sister is a little runt. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Oh, I would love that so much. Like you can make Cinderella very heavy metal very quickly. Yeah. You just get like the fairy godmother to put on like Kiss makeup. It'd be wicked. Right, I think that's fantastic. Is Cinderella the kind of the first act on in that main stage?
So yeah, so what I've done is I've done it by like who would headline, although I do have 4 for this one because I couldn't narrow it down, but I can narrow it down for you if you want. But this would be the Friday night headliner. It would be Cinderella.
Got you, yeah.
And I think even though some people might not be familiar with this one and might be like, I don't like musicals from 1957, people would see this cast and go, I have to see what this is. I have to see what this is about.
Absolutely.
We did think about marketing.
Well, for £500 a ticket, you bloody well hope so.
Yeah.
But the Devonshire people are very delighted, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, after Cinderella, who else would you have on your main stage?
I would have, so on the Friday night, it is a tie between another 2 standard movie musicals from years gone by. So this is a double header of The Music Man, from 1962, and Hello Dolly, the movie, the film Hello Dolly from 1969, starring Walter Matthau and Barbara Streisand, with a cameo from Louis Armstrong in it.
Wow. And is Louis Armstrong gonna reappear as well?
Absolutely. So the reason I'm just gonna bust through the Music Man real quick. The reason why I picked the Music Man is because first of all, it's written by Meredith Willson, who, if you can't tell, is a woman and wrote one of the best musicals of all time. You don't see a lot of female composers, especially in the 50s and 60s. So how she pulled this off is beyond me. This movie, again, the music bops. Do you watch Family Guy?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Have you ever seen an episode where for some reason the dad in Family Guy breaks out into a song called Shapoopy?
Yeah, Shapoopy. Yeah, Shapoopy. The girl
That is from The Music Man.
Oh my god! I think about that song about once. I would say about once to every 2 weeks, maybe, and I don't know where it came from. And you've given me a light bulb moment here. Thank you so much.
Not only is it from The Music Man, but the animation that they did for that is almost exactly shot for shot what they did in The Music Man.
Oh, we see. Yeah.
Which is so fun to go back and watch Family Guy, and he does that a lot, where he'll reference something so niche. Like how many people were watching that scene and were like, oh, that's Shapoopy from the 1962 film The Music Man with the exact choreography. Like, me and 4 other people knew that. But they did that. They did that for me.
And those 4 other people are loving this podcast so far.
Yeah, exactly. So that song is from it. Young Ron Howard plays a child in it.
Oh, wow.
So Ron Howard is in this musical back in 1962. No. Buddy Hackett is in it. Do you know who Buddy Hackett is?
I don't, unfortunately.
He's a famous American comedian who was one of those people who's quite rude, but somehow found his way into like the Disney wheelhouse. Yeah. He was in Herbie the Love Bug.
Yes. Yeah.
But the most famous song from it, there's 2, are Trouble, which is trouble right here in River City with a capital T that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool. That stands for pool. Oh, yes, we have trouble right here in River City. And then the 76 trombones, which is 76 trombones led the big parade with 110 cornets right behind.
So I've got a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Firstly, are all these songs kind of lodged in your head, ready to go at any point? Is it so embedded into you that you know it off from the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm just singing these. I don't know. I probably can't do all of them from start to finish. Yeah. Some of them I can do. But also, this musical is about a man named, played by Robert Preston, called Professor Harold Hill, that is a shyster that shows up in town and tries to sell musical instruments and then leaves town before he teaches anyone how to play them.
Oh, yeah.
So he's a bad guy, but of course he finds his heart. But the way he whips up interest in starting a boys band, that's why we need to start the River City Boys Band, is the song Trouble. And he basically makes the community fear the youth and what the youth is doing. So the reason why there's trouble in River City is because they just opened a pool hall. And if they've opened a pool hall, young boys might be going to that pool hall and playing pool and smoking rollies and fastening their knickers above the knee and getting rude jokes. And that's why we need something wholesome in this town, like a boys band. So the way he does it was he instills in the community fear of the young, which I think is a theme that still holds out today. Whenever something goes wrong, it's the fault of the youngest generation. So
for sure, yeah. And Yeah, this sounds really amazing, and I think you're doing such a good job as a sales pitch because, like, you know, I haven't seen a musical for a really long time, but yeah, this is looking fantastic. You know, I want to join the Riverside Boys choir. You know, the boy band. I'm going to be there. You know, but
You'd
also
be great.
I have a question which has been on my
Yes.
mind for the last couple of minutes. You mentioned a young Ron Howard is in this production, which is amazing. You know, director and narrator from Arrested Development, like a very esteemed career. Are we having Ron Howard as an adult appear back on stage, or is he as a child on stage?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. But so he plays like, I think he's like 7 or 8 in this.
Yeah.
And he plays a young boy who's too shy to speak because he has a lisp. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the musical, he is endowed with confidence because he's learning how to be in a band. Mm-hmm. And that he sings a whole song. He goes from not speaking to singing the Wells Fargo wagon is a coming in the town. And he does it in this little cute voice with a lisp. And where it would be adorable to see young Ron Howard do it again, it would be hysterical to see old Ron Howard do it. So I think we're going to keep Robert Preston and Buddy Hackett and Shirley Jones all the same age they were in this movie, and then make Ron Howard much older than them even.
It'd be so funny. It's like, look at that cute boy. It's like, I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yes. So we have Music Man. We have Hello, Dolly.
Hello, Dolly is a special one to me because it's the one I watched on loop, and that's the who I want to be when I grow up. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be Dolly Levi. Mm-hmm. And something very special that this musical does that no musical really does or did, especially in the golden era. Musicals were really known to dip after the intermission. You know, the songs get a little serious, a little boring. When they wrote this one, in this musical, they're all waiting for Dolly to arrive at the Harmonian Gardens restaurant. And all of the waiters flip out, and there's a huge dance scene that they do this dance scene. Yeah. And then at the end of it, it's like someone comes up to the maitre d' and is like, Rudy, she's here. And in the Broadway production, that's when curtain goes down and it's the intermission. So she hasn't entered yet. Yeah. She hasn't entered the scene yet. And the second act opens with the iconic Hello, Dolly song where she descends the staircase. And this is where Louis Armstrong has a cameo. And they sing Hello, Dolly, and it is one of the happiest things I've ever seen in my life.
You're really bringing a lot of these scenes to life as well. And and I can kind of picture it I can hear your warmth to it as well. And it's something really desirable to hear. And I can imagine you in the crowd kind of just going crazy for it as well. Would you, in your power position, would you ever want to be on stage singing it?
I mean, that was the dream when I was a kid, but I would really love to watch these stars do what they do. This, by the way, I said everyone would be sitting in chairs, and it'd just be like the singing. I lied because some of these are big dance numbers. Like this one has a lot of big dance numbers in it. They would do the original choreography from the movies. Yeah. But I think I'd just have to watch. I mean, you'd have to watch. I mean, Barbra Streisand and Walter Matthau together and Walter Matthau can't sing. Fun fact, Barbra Streisand was way too young to play this role. She was like in her 20s, and Dolly Levi is supposed to be like an older matchmaker. And she falls in love with Walter Matthau, who's like in his 40s at the time. They famously hated each other on this set. Really? Yeah, Walter Matthau thought she was I think she had just come from directing something. I can't remember what her directorial debut was, but she wanted a lot of control. Like she kept asking for stuff and was very concerned with like what the directors and the cinematographers were doing. And Walter Matthau is like an old school actor who like shows up, does his job, hit his mark, and he just thought she was a bitch. And so it'd be really fun too to see them backstage.
Yeah.
and to see if they're still all Haiti on each other.
Yeah, like kind of a big brother, kind of like in the green room, but like, oh my god, I absolutely hate that. Like the passive aggressive little vibes as well. Like
Yeah, exactly.
After Hello Dolly, what do you have?
Chicago the Musical.
Whoa, yeah.
So this one you'll I'm sure you've heard of if you've not seen. So we are, instead of doing the Broadway production, which is amazing, don't get me wrong, we have gone with the 2002 movie starring Renee Zellweger and Richard Gere and what's her name? Help me out here. I don't worry, I've got the Wikipedias. Catherine Zeta-Jones playing Velma Kelly. And the reason why I picked this one is because this, to me, was a musical that when it came to the film, I was very dubious about how they would do it, because in the original Broadway production is very, very vaudevillian, and that wouldn't really translate. And it's also famously choreographed by Bob Fosse. And in the movie musical, they didn't do Bob Fosse. They made it their own, and they nailed it. Like, what they did with the cell block tango in that film is just iconic. And the way they brought on Maitre Mama Morton, who's played by Queen Latifah, singing Mama's Good to You.
Really?
Like, yeah, Queen Latifah's in it.
Wow.
So this has Renee Zellweger, Catherine
Richard
Zeta-Jones, Richard Gere, Christine Baranski, and Queen Latifah.
Nice. I feel like with people who come to festivals, they don't always like all the bands on. However, I feel if someone came here because their partner really wanted to go to a musical festival and wasn't totally into musicals, I feel that you could be sold into this. You know what I mean? I think that there's something here for everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's stuff here for the proper, like, people who know their stuff, and there's stuff there for people who enjoy it casually. You know, it's really nice.
Yeah. Well, what I've tried to do is make the headliners, at the very least, I hope you've heard of these. Yeah. And some of these, I'm like, it's real niche. Like, you'd have to know it to know it.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. I'm so curious. I want to know what your numbers are for this episode, because I really think there's going to be a huge dip. I really think you're going to be like, 4 people have listened to this. As soon as you said Cinderella from 1997, there's a huge drop off.
Hey, if you're still listening, listener, give yourselves a pat on the back. You know, like, you've done good. This is the Hunger Games, but for podcasting.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So that's your main stage, right? Those 4. That's fantastic. Do you want to talk about the other acts you have on?
Yeah, so on the Off-Broadway stage, so this is the smaller stage, so this is the one, this is really going to get our theater nerds going. These are musicals that are, in my mind, quite iconic, but were never Broadway, they were Off-Broadway. Or not even that. The first one being Children of Eden, written by Stephen Schwartz. Stephen Schwartz also wrote Pippin. He wrote Wicked. He wrote Pocahontas.
Yeah.
And like, if we're going into like cartoon movies, he wrote the music for Pocahontas, Prince of Egypt, and Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Wow. So big Disney.
Yeah. So there's 2 big Disney players. That's another thing. When people are like, I don't like musicals, but they like Disney animation musicals, I'm like, they're written by the same fucking people. Like, they literally are. But Children of Eden is about kind of the creation of the world. So the first act takes place in the Garden of Eden, and it's about Adam and Eve and the experience of original sin. And then the second act is about Noah and the flood, and it's about the flood, and there's this huge issue with, like, one of his sons is in love with this woman, but she has the mark of Cain, so she should drown. And does this woman come onto the boat or not? And it originated in 1991 at the Royal Shakespeare Theater, and then had a West End run, which I thought it was purely a U.S. show, but apparently it started over here to not great reviews, and I genuinely wonder if it was it flopped over here because it's so religious.
Yeah.
Because, again, the music is great. They have this song called Lost in the Wilderness that Cain sings, of Cain and Abel, of the sons of Adam and Eve. You can find it on Spotify. You cannot find the whole album on Spotify, which I think is weird. But you can find Lost in the Wilderness, which is about this kid who's like, I've done everything you've ever told me to do, and I've obeyed all the rules. I'm not going to try to sing this one because it's a belter. It's emotional.
Yeah.
But I've obeyed all the rules. I've done everything you've ever told me to. Like, he's talking to God. It's a prayer. And what does that get me? It gets me lost in the wilderness because they've been kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And now his life is just despair and worship of a God who is punishing him. And he wants more than that. It's one of those songs that just soars. Like, this guy writes for the voice. Stephen Schwartz writes for the voice. He writes for piano. Like, they just move so beautifully. There's also a beautiful choir song in there called Generation, which is a bit, I mean, it just lists how, it's literally a list song that traces the lineage from Noah to Adam and Eve. But it's a huge choir. It's a huge like gospel choir song that's done almost all a cappella with an egg shaker and some claves, and it's just a beautiful piece of music. But I really like that musical. It didn't show up in the U.S. until it went to the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. It's never had a Broadway or off-Broadway run, but it is a big musical for regional theaters, and it's great. It's I love it. I love it. I really think the reason why it didn't go down in Britain is because it's so religious.
I was thinking about that, and I think you're probably right as well, because it might just be a bit too much as well, especially if it was no new angle with it. But yeah, I think that's it sounds really interesting, and it sounds like Cain was such a sympathetic character as well, and yeah.
And then the song, another song is "Strangers to the Rain." Anyone who knows musicals, like "Strangers to the Rain" is like that one of those songs that every young girl tried to sing and you can't because it's too damn high. But it's a song. That's the song about the girl who has the mark of Cain, who's just like, "Am I just meant to die here?" And she accepts it. And the whole song is like I am no stranger to the rain is kind of the thing she keeps repeating. Like, everyone keeps shitting on me all the time. In the middle of the song, she professes to the man she loves. And by the end of it, she's telling God to open up the skies and let her die. And it's just, and it bops again. It's catchy. Like, people think musicals are so happy. No one's listening to the lyrics. These are dark, dark, dark shows.
I love the lyric. Everyone's just shitting on me right now. This is terrible.
But she's been she has the mark of Cain. She's been ostracized. I mean, it's kind of, when you think about it, it's kind of about racism in a way, because she's being judged for something that isn't any control of hers. Like, she's a good person. She's done what she's supposed to do in her life, but she's not to be saved in the apocalyptic plague because she was born with the mark of Cain. You know?
Absolutely.
It's just occurred to me, I have no clue how this musical ends. I actually forget.
Oh my.
I don't remember how it ends. I just realized that.
How can you go into such level of detail with actually not quite sure what the ending is? Oh,
because
I know.
It's one of those where, like I said, you can't find the whole album on Spotify, which is how I listen to all my music. So I haven't listened to the whole thing through in probably 10 years.
Oh my god, we should find the CD somewhere or whatever. We'll mail it to you, as well as a t-shirt cannon, and we'll
Or if you could just send the music to me on a UCB stick, because I no longer have access to a CD player because it's 2021.
Of course, yeah. I'll just get a TikTok and download it straight to our face for sure. And so after Children of Eden, which other two shows have you got off Broadway?
Okay, so the next two are The Last 5 Years, written by Jason Robert Brown, which, there's some drama in that one I can't wait to tell you about. And then, okay, so let's talk about the last 5 years real quick. Last 5 years, debuted in Chicago in 2001 and then off-Broadway in 2002. It was made into a film in 2014 starring Anna Kendricks. Now, I have not seen this movie.
Yeah.
However, I think she's great, and I bet she did a very good job at it. So if you wanted to watch this one, that's how you'd watch it. In the original off-Broadway production, there are only 2 characters in the whole thing, and it is about a man and a woman who fell in love and then break up. But the way the story is told is it is told from the man's perspective at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of the relationship, and it's told from the woman's perspective at the end of the relationship. So by the time you get to the end of the musical, she is falling in love with him and he is divorcing her.
Yeah.
And does that all make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They kind of pass in the middle.
It's kind of like, was it 500 Days of Summer or something like that, where like there's like kind of this jumping time, but also it's kind of like the male perspective is moving forward on a regular timeline, and the female perspective is moving back, but they synchronize across the songs. Is that?
Yeah, but they actually only appear in one song together.
Okay.
Again, it's got some great songs in it, but Jason Robert Brown, who's known for Off-Broadway, is quite a divisive character, and I found this on the Wikipedia that I think I need to read to you. The last 5 years was actually inspired by his failed marriage to Teresa O'Neill.
I thought it was Theresa May then. I was like, whoa,
yeah,
that's drama.
Yeah. O'Neill, Teresa, sued Jason Robert Brown on the grounds of the story of the music violating their non-disparagement and non-disclosure agreement of their divorce.
Whoa.
And so he countersued her, saying that because of her interfering with his creative work and creative process. He's such a douchebag, but he's like a really good writer.
Imagine that as the next musical. I'll see you in court. I'll get you sued. And so, yeah, I think that he just has his autobiography just told from many of his musicals.
Exactly. He actually had to change one of the songs because it's so closely was related to her that they had to take it out. So, yeah, so he wrote this about his actual divorce. And the way it is in the musical is that the man in the musical is a writer, like a novelist, who at the very beginning of his career gets a book sold and starts to become famous very quickly. And his girlfriend / becomes his wife / they get divorced is an actress who they start both meeting each other in New York when both of them have nothing and they're trying to prove themselves in this big city. He becomes a famous novelist. Her career goes nowhere. So she's watching her husband become more and more famous as her career just kind of drifts along in nothingness. You can understand why she sued him. Like, fuck you.
Yeah. And
how that affects their relationship, how his fame and her lack thereof affect the way they interact with each other. It's... Again, sad stuff.
Yeah, because, like, I'll be honest, a lot of these I'm not very familiar with. All of them are devastating.
Yeah, I guess I didn't do that on purpose, but I guess the thing is people, when they talk about musicals, they always talk about how they're so light and fluffy or they're so unbelievable. And because everyone breaks into song. And my first argument is, if you don't like musicals based solely on the fact that they're fantastical, I will not hear you talk about comic books. I will not.
I feel seen.
And secondly, like, they deal, like, you have musicals that are really light and fluffy, and when you talk about, like, the golden age of musical theater, when you think of, like, people are always considering musicals like, again, The Sound of Music as this light and fluffy musical. They almost get killed by Nazis in that musical. Like, was no one watching it? Yeah. In the musical genre, they actually deal with really heady stuff. In the musical Showboat, they deal with racism. In the musical Carousel, which was, again, written in the 50s, The Showboat was written in the 30s, and it deals with racism. And the musical Carousel is about a man who dies and goes to heaven and then talks to an angel and gets allowed to go back to earth to make right with his wife because he was a physically abusive husband who's getting a second chance to do right by his wife. And I mean, that's like, so we're talking about like spousal abuse and like the rise of the Third Reich and racism in America, and people are like, I don't like musicals, they're too fluffy. I'm like, what are you watching? Oh my god.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is just kind of like what they hear. It's like you hear like the music, the din 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 din, you know, it's like, oh, that sounds quite chirpy. It's like, well, it's only you haven't really listened to the music, you know what I mean? And that's where great, and beyond musical to all music, that's where great music lies, you know, like it's something that seems, I think my kind of point of reference is I love the song Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen, because on the outside it's like, yeah, our glory days, woohoo, yeah, here we go, and it's like a party song, but if you listen to it, it's just like, yeah, we're just talking about how like good our life used to be, and now it's just a mess, you know, and it feels like people do know the lyrics, but people don't see that. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel like it doesn't necessarily correlate. But I think it's wonderful for that reason.
Well, same with talking about Bruce Springsteen. His song "Born in the USA" is a Vietnam protest song, and famously, I think it was either George Bush Sr. or Ross Perot, someone of that era, wanted to use it as their campaign song. And like their aides had to be like, you can't use Born in the USA as your campaign song. And he's like, no, it'd be a great song. He's like, Born in the USA, yeah, pump up. They're like, have you listened to it? It's very critical of the government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Specifically the Republican Party.
Especially with of that ilk for sure. But I think it's a really awesome point. But yeah, just to finish off your off-Broadway stage.
One more. Yeah. This one I think you'll know of. Started in Broadway in 1982. And then moved to Off-Broadway, I think the following year. Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go. We know this one.
Yes.
And this was written by Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. Do you know those names if I say them?
No, I don't.
Okay, you'll know their work. Again, they also made a lot of the great Disneys. So they made Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid. These are those guys.
Oh, I see. And Little Shop of Horrors. It's quite a vivid. It's a different tone from maybe Last 5 Years or Children of Men, but still quite severe and quite.
I mean, we do talk about spousal abuse in it, so don't worry, kids. It's happy. But again, it's so good. The song, first of all, in the musical revival of it that will appear at this musical theater festival, we will have the giant plant puppet. You gotta have the giant plant puppet, Audrey. And the song that the puppet sings, Get It? Do you know it? It's so good.
Again, it's been a really long time since I've seen it. Funnily enough, my school actually did a production of it when I was in year 13, and at that point I was like, I don't need to do the school musical, but I wish I did. But I did see it, and it was fantastic. And they had to hire the Audrey in because that's part of the licensing agreement. And it was massive. It was wonderful though.
Yeah. It's so good. And Suddenly Seymour, which is the song sang by Seymour and his love interest. How am I Audrey. Oh, duh. It's Audrey because he names the plant Audrey too.
Yeah.
Is such a power ballad. It is just rocked to your core. Just a beautiful song and all about coming together and these two awkward people falling in love and and then the plant goes to space. It gets real weird. It does what Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of does to me, which is you're like, yeah, and then the ending comes and you're like, I don't know about that ending, but
yeah, very much like Grease, like it's all here we go, and now the car's flying. What the fuck? Yeah.
We need an ending.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I think Little Shop of Horrors is going to be a treat, and I watched the film version as well, and I really loved it. But I particularly love Steve Martin as the dentist as well.
Yeah.
He's a particular... I love Steve Martin very, very much, and yeah.
That's such a good song, too. And it was all written with, like, that 60s Motown vibe to it. That's why the music is so, like, boppy and poppy, because it was written as, like, what if Motown had a musical? And now they do, fun fact. But it's just really good music.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that's I think that's such an awesome musical to have as well.
So we are doing Cabaret, the 1998 cast revival starring Alan Cumming and Natasha Richardson. We will be doing the Gypsy the musical from 1959, which is the original musical, starring Ethel Merman, who is the this is why Broadway belting has become a thing. She is the one. And then finally, our last night of the musical. Did I pick Hamilton? No, I didn't, because you all thought I would. So I picked, and I knew Matt would have some opinions on that one. And I was like, nope, we got to keep it underground. Is Rent, the 1993 debut.
Yes. You know what? I love Rent. Rent's fantastic. I love
Rent's great. Rent's great. I went for Rent. It was going to be either Hamilton or Rent, but I was like, I feel like everyone would pick Hamilton right now, so I went for Rent.
On that final day, you got Cabaret, you got, was it Gypsy and Rent as well?
Yeah.
In terms of that day, what's the kind of, with the other days kind of feel like they've got different themes to it as well. What do you think that Sunday theme is? Or that third?
I think these are all musicals in their own way defined the genre. And there were so many different ways to go with this one. Let's just start out with Gypsy in 1959. First of all, Ethel Merman played Mama Rose. And for those of you who have never seen it or don't know what I'm talking about, that song, you'll be swell, you'll be great, have the whole world on a plate, starting here, starting now, honey, everything's coming up roses. That is from Gypsy. And that is, again, when you hear it out of the context of a musical, it sounds really fun and happy. But it is about a mother who is a vicious stage mother who lost her starling daughter, who ran off and got married, and is trying to convince her second daughter to become a performer who doesn't want to do it. And this is the song that ends the first act before intermission, and she just basically bulldozes over her child and forces her into theater. And then, as you would know if you know the musical, her second daughter becomes a striptease artist. And then she becomes very jealous because her daughter becomes very famous, and she always wanted to be famous. The role of Mama Rose, played by Ethel Merman in this production, is what I consider the, like, Hamlet of musicals.
Yes.
Like, it is, it's such a tricky role. It's vocally incredibly demanding. It is emotionally, you are going all over the place with it. And it's a role that's only been played by the greats. Patti LuPone, Ethel Merman, what's her name, who you don't know, Bernadette Peters, like...
that was the most passive-aggressive callback I've ever heard in my life. Is that person you don't remember?
Is that person you don't know? And it was also choreographed by Jerome Robbins, and Jerome Robbins also choreographed West Side Story. You know, the snapping. Yeah, that's him. So it's big, huge dances, beautiful numbers. It's a comment on parenting and show business. It is brilliant.
You know what? Like, I'm not sure if you could be able to tell, but I actually have a big shame at the moment because my university degree was drama, joint honours with classics, and I feel I'm gonna have to refund the part which was joint honours drama because I don't know anywhere close to near as you here. I'm gonna have to refund it. I might get like 18 grand back, and I feel so sad. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, well, that being said, if the tables were turned and you were telling me all about like Shakespeare or Moliere, I'd be in your boat where I'd be like, I vaguely know what that is.
But yeah, just to wrap up this your kind of musical selections, what is the one song you think you could recommend from the musical Rent?
Oh, La Vie Boheme, which is the song that closes the first act. Mm-hmm. Or, the song that everyone knows because it did play on the radio is Seasons of Love. That 525,600 minutes. Now, if you look back at Rent, it looks like a period piece because it was written of its time, about its time. And now you look at like the clothing in it and you're like, oh my God, who dresses like that? But, La Vie Boheme is about just kind of like trying to be an artist in New York while capitalism oppresses you. That's kind of like what the whole musical is about. Like every 20 years or so, a musical comes along that redefines the genre, or not necessarily redefines the genre, but brings musicals to the people. Well, I wish I had time to talk about Cabaret. All I'll say is I saw Alan Cumming do Cabaret on Broadway, and I cried. But what I want to talk about Rent is there is every 20 years or so, there's a musical that redefines the genre or brings it to the people. So in the 50s, when you had Carousel and Hello, Dolly and The Music Man, in 1959 or 1960, Hair was written, and Hair has got Age of Aquarius, and that was the first time that like people thought that musicals were for old stuffy people with blue hair, and then Hair came out, and there was just finally a musical that spoke to the youth. And then in the 90s we had Rent, and Rent was talking about AIDS in New York and how oppressive it is to be an artist and how difficult life is, and it was all set to like a type of music that people listened to that day. Literally, when Jonathan Larson wrote it, he said, I want it to be MTV on Broadway, and that's what he did. And now, in this era, you have Hamilton, which is bringing you hip-hop and speaking, telling like this beautiful story of America that is a bit whitewashed, but nonetheless. But it is again music that speaks to a younger generation. So I feel like every 20 years, sometimes every 10 years, people forget about musicals, and they forget how beautiful they are, and they start to get that reputation of being stuffy and too fantastical and too twee and too cute. And then all of a sudden someone comes out with your Rent, your Hamilton, your Hair. And that is why Rent is the final closing one, is because it represents the moment that Broadway breaks through to the rest of the world.
Wow. And that, I think, is the perfect way to finish off this music festival. Oh my God, there is so much going on here, and my face is melted off with just the amount of depth and drama and intrigue. Like, I feel people would fill their boots with all of this as well. Was it easy for you to kind of curate and pull it all together?
Yeah, well, like anyone, you sent me the email yesterday, so I did it an hour before we got on.
Of course, yeah.
It like I was thinking about it on my run today, and it's hard to. There's so many that I didn't do. So I didn't do Avenue Q.
Yeah.
Book of Mormon. That was another defining genre. That's another one that broke through and reached out to the people. It's hard. It's hard to pick, and I could have gone real obscure with Off-Broadway. We could have gone musicals, Broadway musicals. Like, we didn't do Singing in the Rain. Yeah. That's a big one. It was hard to narrow it down, but I think I just followed my heart. Yeah. And I was like, what do I want to see? Yeah. And this is what I'd like to see. Well, I would pay 500 quid to go to this. Well, fun fact, I paid when I did see, the last thing I did before I left New York was see Alan Cumming in Broadway do Cabaret when he revived it in 2014. He revived that role. I paid $800 for 2 tickets to sit in the Kit Kat Club, which was like the front row, because I was like, this will be the last show I ever see on Broadway, and this is my favorite musical of all time. I'm doing it. And it was amazing. So actually, 500 quid for a weekend is cheap because
pretty good.
Because these tickets, when they were on Broadway, impossible to get tickets for. Impossible.
Well, I tell you what, the people of Devon are going to be are going to be very, very happy. But let's head to the final part of our podcast and deal with some floor fillers.
Okay.
As with event management, things are bound to go wrong, so here's a couple of hypothetical questions that Abigoliah has to deal with in a manner that she sees fit.
Okay.
Okay.
I really think this is all unnecessary after my huge soliloquy about musicals that break through and reach the people, but fine, we can talk about admin of a festival.
It's a fun quick fire round. Deal with
it.
Okay. So I feel like this is I've changed this question for you today, and so which one person do you think would act like the biggest diva towards you?
Oh, Barbra Streisand, without a question.
What kind of things would Barbra Streisand do to you?
She would demand like weird things in her trailer and nothing like. She famously does not remember her lyrics, so we would have to have a teleprompter specifically for her.
Yeah.
We would have to put a trailer for her and Walter Matthau on opposite ends of the festival because they hate each other so much. And yeah, I think she'd be the biggest diva.
Oh, brilliant.
She is the biggest diva. She
famously.
literally is the biggest diva.
Oh no, the cast of Cinderella dropped out last minute. Who do you get to replace them?
Oh, well, that's why I have four musicals on that stage, and it would be The Music Man steps in. Who would I have in the movie musicals drop in? You know what? It wouldn't be appropriate for a summer festival, but I really like White Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's got Bing Crosby in it, Danny Kaye, Rosemary Clooney, and then a woman whose name I can't remember, but if you've ever seen the movie, she always wears turtlenecks. Mm-hmm. And fun trivia fact, it's because her bulimia was so severe, her neck, when you force yourself to throw up, your neck starts to age. This is a side effect of eating disorders. Mm-hmm. And her neck was unsightly, and that is why she always wears turtlenecks in that movie.
I see. Again, a lot of information here, which it's going to be an absolute a treasure trove for many people. And let's do a couple more questions. Oh dear, one of your acts have forgotten all their equipment, but good news, they can do an a cappella set. Which musical, if you had to choose, would you make do an a cappella set?
Oh God, I'm trying to think of one. Like, it can't be Music Man because it's literally about a guy who's creating a marching band. So you have to. God, none of these would work. I'm gonna go. Part of me is like Children of Eden, because fuck it, no one cares about that one but me anyways. So if we're gonna throw one to the wolves, it's gonna be Children of Eden. Sorry, Stephen Schwartz, but we'll do Children of Eden because that's the one that everyone's gonna go, what's that?
Okay, so kind of mentioned it earlier, but your festival loves you and they want you to sing one song at the festival. If you had to pick one song out of every single one of these musical songs, which one would you pick to go out on stage with? Okay,
so again, because we've got these are roles I want to play. I think I would be brave and pick the hardest song in this lineup, and I would tell Ethel Merman, get backstage, it's time for Abigoliah to play Mama Rose, and I would do Rose's Turn from Gypsy.
Nice.
Which is basically when Mama Rose has like a nervous breakdown. It's it's amazing.
And that is the end of Floor Fillers, and that is the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Have you had a nice time today, Abigoliah?
I have had a great time, and I am very curious to see how you edit this down into an hour.
It's actually this recording has taken 7 hours, but it's going to be reduced down very, very shortly. But yeah, seriously, it's been an absolute joy to have you here. Where can people find you online, and would you like to plug anything?
So I am on all social medias, including the TikToks. I've joined the TikToks, and I really like it there. So if you're on the TikToks, please follow me. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Abigoliah. And I have a cooking show on YouTube called Just Like Mom Made, where I make food from my Midwestern childhood. And most of it I've never made before, so everything always goes tits up. But the last episode I actually made with my mom. It was a special.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, we made a blueberry cream pie together. So yeah, so if you like cooking shows, but you want to see someone who doesn't actually know how to cook make really difficult things, tune into Just Like Mom Made.
Fantastic stuff. And thank you, listener, for listening to Castival today. If you do enjoy the episode, please give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. Each one does make a difference, so please do that. And please make sure to follow us at Castival Podcast on Twitter and email us at castivalpodcast@gmail.com. I've been Matt Hoss, and please give a massive thank you to my wonderful guest. It's Abigoliah Schamaun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Matt. This was a lot of fun.